If you're hurting for shards in Forbidden West, I have 3 methods to help you out, plus a bonus method that will net you over 1,000 shards per minute and make you rich super fast. In your inventory, there's a bunch of stuff you don't need that we can cash in on. First, go to your resources tab and hit this button right here to sort everything into categories. Right off the bat, we can see we get a valuables to sell section, and you can safely sell all these items. So anytime you're at a merchant, go through and mark everything in this category to sell it all in one go. The next 2 categories are key upgrade resources and gear upgrade resources. Of course, you're going to need all this stuff, so you don't want to sell anything in here until the late game when you've settled on your end game gear. Below that, we have the pouch upgrade resources, which we're going to skip over for a second, and then ammunition resources. You're going to want to hang on to all this stuff as well. The one possible exception would be crystal braiding, which is used to craft targeting arrows, stagger beams, and shield wires, all of which are much more niche ammo types that most people will very rarely use, if at all. They are also used to craft berserk arrows, which are the Forbidden West equivalent of corruption arrows from Zero Dawn. I personally don't find those very useful either, so if you're like me, you can sell all your crystal braiding anytime you're at a merchant. You can only carry 15 at a time, so if you don't use or sell them, they start to stack up in your stash and are just wasted. Food resources start to stack up as well. Most of them aren't worth much, but if you know you're not going to buy particular food items with them, you could dump these as well. Though food is pretty useful, so if you haven't played around with it, you should probably hang on to these items for now. Dye plants start to stack up as well, especially if you have the auto pickup setting turned on, which we discuss in my essential tips video. But you'll probably want to hang on to the dye plants until the end game anyway, because different combinations are used to unlock a lot of different outfit dyes. Once you have unlocked a dye though, it will just cost 25 shards to use it again, so the plants do become useless at some point. Switching over to the tools tab, you could certainly sell off any unwanted traps if you know you're never going to use them, but I would hang on to at least one of each type. As long as you have at least one in your inventory, then if you edit your toolkit to remove it, even when you loot another, it won't pop up in the toolkit again. You could also consider selling off unwanted coils and weaves. I definitely wouldn't do this until the late game though. It takes a while to get good coils, and you'll definitely want to be using green and blue versions until you can load up on multiple copies of purples or golds. You might also be tempted to sell old, lower rarity outfits and weapons, but I would strongly recommend against this. So many people sell a piece of gear and then regret it later because they can't get the item back. For example, if they sold something that was obtained from a quest. But I wouldn't even sell gear you can buy from merchants. Even if you've purchased a higher rarity version of something, you might realize the old version has ammo types or a set of perks you like better. Or maybe you just invested in upgrading it and it actually has better stats than the unupgraded new weapon you just got. Now, there is a buyback section in the merchant inventory, but it will only ever show the last 30 items sold, so it's very easy for a piece of gear to get lost permanently. But let's jump back to that pouch upgrade category, where you'll see that all the animal parts are actually worth quite a bit. Every purple animal part is worth 125 shards, and blue ones are worth 50. So if you've upgraded your pouches, or even just the ones you care about for now, selling off some of these animal parts can net you a nice chunk of shards. And our next method actually takes this one step further, because we can, of course, purposely go hunt these animals to get more parts to sell. Hunting animals for parts is arguably the best way to farm shards in the game, because it's super low risk, doesn't require expensive ammo, and goes pretty fast. You just need to find a good spot. The best animals to hunt are crabs, lobsters, and pelicans. They're all one shot, even to a weak bow. They all show up in beach biomes, which is ideal because they're nice and flat, and there's hardly anywhere for them to hide or get lost in vegetation. The crabs and lobsters are slow, so it's easy to hit them, and even though the pelicans will fly away, they're the biggest birds in the game, so they're much easier to hit. So once you're far enough west, find yourself a beach area with a bunch of these guys, and just keep running up and down the beach using your focus to find and shoot them. They'll constantly respawn, so you can basically farm them forever. Now, the crabs and lobsters will burrow in the sand if you startle them, and they despawn shortly afterwards, so you do want to keep your distance and take a moment to line up your shot. You can mark them with the focus and use concentration to make this easier. To conserve resources and maximize your profits, I would also recommend using a lower rarity hunter bow with regular hunter arrows instead of advanced ones. The advanced arrows cost more shards to craft. Now, if you're not far enough west to have access to a beach yet, then you can simply hunt other small animals almost as easily. One spot I like is this shelter directly north of Scalding Spear. The fields just north of the shelter are filled with prairie dogs, rabbits, foxes, and raccoons. shards. There also aren't too many machines around here to accidentally run into. But if you'd rather hunt machines than animals, you can farm shards that way too. I'll only show you footage of tremor tusks, but I will mention a few others. So if you don't want to know about them, go ahead to the next section and come back to this later. Some of the most valuable individual machine components are things like Fireclaw sack webbing, Thunderjaw tails, and Tide Ripper tail fins. Shell Snapper shell bolts are also worth 68 each, and you can potentially get 6 of them per hunt for a total of 408 shards. The biggest, baddest Apex machines also drop their hearts, which are worth north of 200 or even 300 shards apiece. But the problem is, it's obviously much tougher and takes a lot of time to take down one of these machines. So if I'm going to hunt machines for shards, I prefer to go for tremor tusks, specifically the Apex variants. The tusks are worth 89 shards each, so if you get all 4, that's 356, and the heart is worth 263 shards, so that's a total of 619. Plus, tremor tusks will give you a bunch of other useful resources, especially if you tear off and loot their 4 ammo drums, like machine muscle, piercing spikes, and blast paste, all of which are used to craft a lot of common ammo types. And since we're hunting an Apex, we'll also get some volatile sludge. Of course, an Apex tremor tusk is not an easy hunt, but it can actually be quite a bit easier than you'd think with shock ammo, since they're weak to shock. My favorite way to farm them is with shock shredders, because they'll basically be stunned the whole time, and the shredder explosions make it super easy to tear off all their tusks and other components. I've got a shredder masterclass if you want to learn how to use them properly. My favorite tremor tusk site to farm is this one on the frozen lake, because it's easy to find all the loot when it's over, and there's a shelter nearby. Plus, instead of fast traveling back and forth to get the tremor tusks to respawn, you can just run down to these claw striders to take them out, and then onto the scorcher down below. Once you take it down, you can head back to the tremor tusk, and you will have been far enough away for it to respawn. So you can just run this circuit as long as you want without fast traveling. Now, of course, you're going to have to be a bit later in the game for this tactic to work, and until then, you're probably going to want to hang on to tremor tusk tusks instead of selling them because they're required for a lot of gear upgrades. But if you want a no-nonsense, easy method to get a lot of shards really fast, let me show you the Whisper Hunter Bow Flip. The Whisper is a green bow you can unlock really early by completing the Shadow in the West quest, which first requires completing Shadow from the Past in the Dawn. You'll need to talk to the prisoner in Barren Light to start that one. But once you get to Shadow in the West, you'll come across a chest containing the Whisper Hunter Bow. Even if you miss it though, it becomes available to buy from a few hunter merchants in different settlements. Now, here's the thing. You can buy the Whisper for 149 shards, but then you can turn around and immediately sell it for 250 shards, without upgrading it or anything. So you can just hang out in the merchant inventory buying and selling the bow repeatedly and net yourself 101 shards on each flip. Once you get in the rhythm of it, you can easily get 1,000 shards per minute, and with some practice you can certainly do north of 1,500. Barren Light is the earliest settlement where you can find the Whisper, but it's a little faster to flip in Plainsong or Scalding Spear because it will be the only green weapon directly at the top of the merchant inventories there. To go fast, unequip all your weapons and put them all in your stash. This way, when you buy the Whisper, it'll be the only thing in your sell inventory and you won't need to worry about accidentally selling something else. Now, you're probably going to want to spend some of your new shards on coils for your weapons, but the good ones are pretty pricey and it's hard to find them all. So I put all that information together for you in this video right here, and I'm gonna head over there right now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you over there in just a second.